Welcome to another episode of Epigram. Today we are in Puerto Rico and Happy New Year. We are here with José Toro and we are in his firm, Toro Arquitectos. And I'm glad to be talking with him. He was like, this was my first home after school studying architecture. And a lot of other people that I know from Puerto Rico came through his guidance and space. So I just want you to start just maybe talking a little bit of your background, because every architect has like a little bit of a story. For example, in my family, I don't have any architects. I'm the first one. And when I start school, I was kind of like, I didn't have a clue of what was the north or what was like my passion behind art or anything. Everything got built through school and working after school with different offices, etc. So tell me a little bit of your story.
Well, Happy New Year to you too. A little of my story. Well, I was born to a couple that was one of them was an architect, my dad, and obviously that had a tremendous amount of influence over my life and my decision to become an architect. Even though it might be seen as an advantage, I would say it's also a hindrance, because you always always had this feeling that I had to live up to something that I maybe wasn't going to be able to achieve. So while I was in high school, I started thinking seriously of studying architecture, and went on to college and really found that I loved what I was studying. And even so, it took a long time for me to really fall into place and feel at ease in my own skin and in my profession. Had a lot of existential issues along the way, doubts, and it probably wasn't until I was in my 30s and started working on my own that I really felt that I had arrived at some peace with myself and with being an architect. And as the years have gone by, 20, 25 years since then, all I can say is that I really love what I do and just want to keep doing it.
Did you ever had the chance to work with your dad?
Yes, and it wasn't necessarily a good experience. We tended to butt heads a lot. Yeah. I shouldn't say that he tried to make me do things his way, but he sort of did. Yeah. And I did not react very positively to that type of thing. My dad was 46 years older than I was, than I am. So that big age difference, I think, was part of the issue. It was hard for me to, it was hard for us to relate to each other at times. But I also depended on him a lot, and I definitely wanted his validation throughout my school process. So it was sort of like a love-hate kind of situation.
That's cool. But I guess maybe something that you heard from back then, maybe you now at a certain age, maybe you see it differently. I don't know.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. I would love to have him look at what I've been doing and comment. And then have the chance to discuss it and argue with him about whether he thinks it's right or wrong. And because he was always very critical. He was. Never in my life did he. He would say, "Oh yeah, the project is okay, it's good, but." And there was always a but, and there was always there was, how do you say, he always demanded more. Right. And I think that's good, there was never any kind of like, oh, you're great, and none of that at all. And one thing I've learned that he always used to tell me is that it really isn't until you're out working that you really learn to be an architect. Yeah. Because school is an idealized world, and you learn a lot, but there's just things about making a building that you can't possibly learn in school, and it takes time. A lot of it is maturation. You have to like I said, grow into your own skin and feel comfortable with what you do and feel confident. And in my case, it took me a while to get there.
That's cool.
I feel like I'm very much a late bloomer. So again, it's a path that was maybe not as easy as I would have wanted, but I think the results are good.
Cool. So talking about path, I know that maybe this will resonate with some of the listeners. Like there's a lot of people that have left the island to pursue their careers because different problems, usually economics, economical problems, etc. And you are one of the ones that actually, in a different era, went to school, to Catholic, also worked with a firm in New York, that time SOM, right? Like,
and Mitchell Gergola as well.
Oh, cool. So, and you knew how the system worked out there, how's the process of the business and architecture in a bigger scale corporation, and then you came back. I don't know how quick after that you start doing your own practice. Or
well, when I was in especially in New York, because that was after finishing my master's in Philadelphia, and New York was sort of like my first real after graduation job where I was probably in a path for a career where and I had begun getting ready for my exams, my registration exams and all that. So working in these at SOM first and then at Mitchell Gergola, I after a while I realized that I wasn't quite comfortable there. I mean, it wasn't what I really wanted to do. I mean, in hindsight, I think it was a great opportunity, definitely, and maybe, sometimes I've thought that maybe I should have stuck it out and stayed at a place like SOM, and I certainly think I could have succeeded there, but I just was, I think, overwhelmed by the size of the firm, the corporate. The corporate nature and ethos of the firm, it just didn't quite fit fit me. Period. I just I felt that one was sort of pigeonholed into doing one thing, and I guess I didn't know how to get myself around that, and I didn't want to play a corporate game. I really didn't feel comfortable doing that. So I then moved to another firm, which a smaller firm, but by the time I moved there, personal situations, my family sort of made me come back to Puerto Rico, even though I had already decided that I wanted to come back to Puerto Rico. I probably came back sooner than I had expected to come back. In coming back to Puerto Rico, I thought things were going to be a lot easier and that I was going to be able to start doing my own work right away. And that was once I was here for a couple of months, I realized that it wasn't going to be that easy, and hit myself against the wall a few times. And while I was here, I worked for a couple of firms. And like I said before, it wasn't really till I started doing things on my own that I felt like I really fell into place. And obviously now, after whatever, I came back it's been almost 20 years. What am I saying? It's almost been 30 years since I came back.
How many years from that is your own practice?
In 93.
Okay.
So whatever, 17, 16 years.
Wow.
And when I'm saying 26, I keep taking 10 years off. 26, 27 years ago.
That's
Cool. Yeah, and that, I had a partner then. We started in doing very small things, and eventually ended up getting larger jobs, institutional jobs, and bigger commercial jobs. So, it was those first 15, 20 years were quite good, and then the economic crisis in Puerto Rico hit, and so it's been the last 10 years more or less have been a little tough, and I had doubts at some point, like in 2011, 2012. I thought, my God, am I going to have to leave? And at that point I'm 51, 52 years old, and I thought, it doesn't make any sense for me to go someplace else. So I stuck it out, and it's been a struggle, but I'm feeling pretty optimistic now about the way things are going.
Jose, something that I find fascinating, and is something that I see that it's not that easy, but I think it comes natural. You see so many different firms, small and big ones, and it's hard to like define and say like this architecture is from this firm. Especially, it doesn't matter the scale or anything like that. I feel like even though with the problems of the crisis here and everything, like every time I see your work, it's very easy to define it. It's like, and it's not because it has more concrete than others, or something, or some kind of fenestration in a certain way or something like that. Because I know that there's a lot of talented people that come through the office and you work with them, but somehow you see reflected like a culture behind it. I don't know if there's something that you can tell by the years that how that happens, or it's just like comes in the natural progression of collaboration. I don't know, because I can tell you, I have seen many offices, even in the US, that it's hard to tell that is from that office, because every work looks very different, it's not consistent, but there's some consistency in quality representation and the way you address or showcase a project, that it really defines your work. And I think that's why also you have like the opportunity of other people appreciating that and getting a lot of awards of build and unbuild projects. And I think it's the way you express your work.
Yeah, I mean it's hard to talk about one's own way of working, but I do really love to. I can't work alone, in a vacuum. I mean, for little bits of time, I obviously work alone, but there's nothing that I love more than to design with somebody, together with somebody, and get the reaction sort of in real time, not this sort of, 2 hours later, let's talk about this now, and yeah, I have certain things that are important to me, in terms of I guess space and light and proportion. I'm very maybe to a fault too concerned about things just having some sort of numerical logic, which might be my own invention and my own my own I set my own limits, but I need those limits to design. I can't design without limits. I need to have a framework, and that framework really is what helps me design. I also, like I said, that I like to work with people. I like to collaborate, and I've had the opportunity in these past few years to work with a landscape architect, Rosana Baccarino, and we really have had, I think we have a really great working relationship in terms of understanding. She has a really great understanding of the site, and where I'm more focused in the building, she's more focused on the site, and we really complement each other, I think, in that sense, and that's certainly been, especially in our project for the lighthouse in Culebrita. So it's, again, it's also been a process of discovery. I think that happens in any project, but a project like the lighthouse is certainly one of discovery. I had no idea what we were going to do. We had no idea how the complexity of the project until we actually started, working, and the design has changed and evolved continually.
That's great.
Since.
So, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. But also, one thing that I think I learned, and I think I share with other people like Edwin, is like every single element that you showcase or express to explain a project, each piece has a lot of importance. Like, I remember I don't do that anymore, but because the speed that the projects are going in and out in the offices we work in the US, like how important was each perspective or view that we can spend like the eyes of different people looking at it, like change the saturation a little bit, like the angle is not there yet.
In the renders and
the renders or the section or the quality of the section or the way we're going to represent the section for this project. Like I remember that each drawing like told a story. Like it's not, if the drawing wasn't telling a story, the drawing will not be there. You know, it's like I remember that you guys took a very unique time to really develop those drawings to the right point.
It you know, our work takes time. You know, to do it. I think to do it correctly and it just takes, it's very time consuming. I think I've also been very fortunate because, you know, I've had really good people working with me, so that certainly influenced me. You know, people like, you know, in your time, like Marcelo and Fernando and Luis and you know, then you guys came along, your generation, and then now Josian and Jose Luis. And the great thing is that I'm having these people sort of, you know, really critically looking at what we're doing and questioning, and that only enriches our work.
So talking back, also, I think you have so many great work. Like your portfolio is amazing. I can share with all of you through the conversation. I can show a few images that we can share with everybody. But also, I feel like sometimes there's a moment or a project that kind of like makes you comfortable and feel like, I think we're doing something right. I don't know if there's something or a project or a few projects that maybe became so essential in your formation, and then you kind of like, you know, you can follow with that.
I think I'm going to mention two time periods. I think the early 2000s when we did the expansion of the annex building to the general studies faculty at the University of Puerto Rico. That together with a couple other public projects, but especially that one, which was an important project with a lot of eyes on it, I thought we really, you know, took some time, but I think we really fell into place, and I started feeling a lot more confident about what I was doing. We later then did the remodeling or rehabilitation of the existing general studies faculty building, and by then we took a lot of what we had learned in the new building and implemented it in the older building, and that one we had a great contractor, so that also helped, you know, just make everything turn out right and give you this sense of security. And then, more recently, I think in 2013-14, we designed the institute, the Aeronautical and Aerospace Institute in Aguadilla, Puerto Rico, at the former Ramey Navy base. And the project had, you know, incredible limitations in terms of time for design and construction, and in terms of budget. But at the same time, we realized this was a project that required it had to have an impact, you know, and of course we didn't know what it was going to be or how it was going to be, but this is a classroom building next to a runway in an airport, which is mostly a cargo airport. And I think there was something of a coming of age with that building, and accepting, you know, sort of a certain amount of simplicity and reducing the project to what was really necessary, and at the same time making it a building that was very much alive and fun, because it's a changing building. It changes throughout the day because of the translucent panels that surround it. So it's I think to me that was a very it was a key project.
Okay. And talking about that, and I think we're gonna gravitate to that, like a lot of firms, like, they can say like we're expert in this field. We're very focused in government. Other firms are very focused in residential work. There's firms that are focused in more interior, commercial interiors, like residential interiors. Like there's a lot of specializations, but I see that you have done quite a little bit of everything.
Yeah, well, that's what we've had. You know, it's not like I had the
but that's fascinating to see. Like, doesn't matter what program comes, like you.
Because at the end of the day, the program. I mean, I think any reasonably good architect is going to be able to, design any. You know, I mean, it could be an airport, it could be a hospital. You know, you don't. Yeah, you're going to need the experts, the people who know about that. But but when it comes to the actual, design in architecture, when it comes to the actual design, you can design anything. You don't have to be limited by a program.
Yeah.
So I used to sort of be a little worried or afraid or whatever you might call it of doing interiors, because I saw it sort of as something, first of all, I hadn't really done it much, and at the same time we were doing corporate interiors, but that, for me, that was more bread and butter work, not really what I wanted to do. And I guess when we did Jose Santaella's restaurant here in Santurce, that to me was also, I guess I have to say, that's also a turning point.
Yeah.
Because it made me realize that it wasn't about decorating, it was about really getting something out of a space and making it special. So and since then we've done another restaurant that I think I feel pretty good about. So yeah, I've worked in all kinds of scales, and I have to say I love working in all kinds of scales, be it an urban scale or be it a tiny restaurant.
That's great. So Jose, talking about like the opportunity to work in so many different like programs in architecture, like you were just talking about working on the interiors of a restaurant and doing institutional projects, and now from what you have been seeing, you're working also in restoration on a very beautiful project. Like, you can explain a little bit more about that.
Yeah, we're designing the restoration of the Culebrita Lighthouse. It's a small island off the coast of Puerto Rico, to the east, overlooking the Virgin Islands, U.S. Virgin Islands. So yeah, it was the last lighthouse built by the Spaniards, by the Spanish government in I believe in the New World, but certainly in Puerto Rico in 1886 approximately. And well, it's basically become a ruin, and we've been working on plans to restore it. But as part of the project, we had to deal with a very important issue, which is how do we get water and energy there, because this island is completely off the grid. The U.S. Navy had left a heliport there, and we're using the footprint of the heliport to turn it into the cisterns and utility building for the lighthouse. So the project has a sort of old new component which is fascinating, and I have to say when we were called, when I got the call from the client to work on this project, I very almost some people would consider this a grave mistake, but in a very sort of spontaneous way, I said, "Listen, why are you calling me? I've never done a restoration such as this, and of course now I look back and I go, well, what's the big deal? I've worked on other types of restorations, like the General Studies building, So I knew it was just a matter of course, going through a learning curve. And I mean, I would lie if I didn't tell you I was, you know, pretty scared about the whole venture.
Yeah.
But as the project went along and we started really looking at it and realizing what the implications of the project were, that I really got into it and whereas maybe at the beginning I thought, well, this is just, you know, restoring the building. Now I realize that we're doing a lot more than just restoring the building, and we're making it into something that is pertinent to the 21st century. So, which has to do with issues of preservation, of energy, of collection of water, of preservation of the island where it sits. And the species and you know, plant life and animal life, marine life. So there's a lot of things here that make this project not just the restoration of a lighthouse. It has to do. The project goes much further than that. Just like the lighthouse wasn't about a lighthouse. The lighthouse had a function because basically it was the lifeline for a transportation system, which was the only transportation system between continents in the 19th century and early 20th century. So whereas the you know, that was the internet of of the time. You know, you needed ships to be guided through to get from one continent to the other, and where this lighthouse sits was one of the major pathways between South America and Spain.
Oh, wow.
So it has a lot of meaning. And now I think it's an opportunity to really not only preserve this so people can learn about it and understand about the lighthouse itself, but really help people understand why it's so important to take care of our environment and nature.
Yeah.
So I think the project and what we've been trying to do, sometimes knowingly, sometimes just accidentally, is really starting to define a way for you know, or an example or a paradigm for how we should approach any kind of building, you know, and where you really harvest any kind of energy or water that you're able to obtain. There's no reason why that couldn't happen all over Puerto Rico and in so many places. So again, that's also something that gives me a lot of satisfaction.
That's great. Yeah, that's a dream project right there.
Yeah, it's funny when you're doing these dream projects that you don't realize you're doing a dream project. It's just a project you're doing. You're just, you know, well, I have to do this, I'll do it, you know, and you don't, it's hard for me to I think if I realize it, but I think if I were to focus on that, I would totally freak out and
it wouldn't be the same.
I wouldn't be able to work.
Yeah.
So I have to sort of, in a funny way, detach myself from the fact that, yeah, I mean, this is the like you say, it's a project that you would do in school and you knew that you would never in your life have a chance to design.
Yeah.
So in that sense, we've been extremely fortunate because we've had a few of these sort of very special projects
on the way. Yeah.
We don't make any money, but
that's priceless.
But our soul is well fed.
Cool. It was great talking to you and seeing what are you up to in the past projects, and thank you again for your time. It's always a pleasure to talk to you.
It's nice to take a chance and sort of think about what you do.
Cool. So for the audience, we're looking forward to do more interviews also in Puerto Rico, so you guys can see the great work that is being done here. So thank you again. See you in the next one.
Thanks.
Thank you. Cool.